When you work as a QA engineer, you can either sit on your chair forever, by which I mean you probably will get laid off soon because you're not valuable part of the team anyways, or you can become a valuable team member who will get promotions, raises, and a lot of recognition. That's what actually I did throughout my career, and I will share quite a bit about it today. But our main hero's name is Dylan, an American who was working as the warehouse employee and then grew up into manual QA engineer. And now he's switching his career to become a QA automation engineer. And in this video, he will share his experience and how exactly he communicates to developers to become their friends, to learn an insane amount of knowledge while you could simply be sitting on a chair and watching movies the way I did 10 years ago. So in order not to miss out on this type of content next time, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we do share completely free videos of interview preparation, of tutorials of tools such as Postman, Swagger, and any other QA-related tools that exist in the world. And mainly, we do share success stories. But before we get into it, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Sergii. I'm a software QA engineer, lead manager, and a senior engineering manager of SDAT in the past. But these days, I'm helping people like you to become a QA engineer from scratch or to improve your existing skills. Now, let's get started. Alrighty, good to see you, Dylan, and thank you for joining this call. We are finally recording video with you. Actually, I think you've just became our student like 5 minutes ago, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I saw an email coming with your name, and I know we've scheduled a call with you. I was like, whoa, okay, interview, it's cool, it's cool. So do you want to tell these people who's going to be watching this video, how did you find us? And what's your goal here? Before we tell them the story and we start discussing relationships between devs and QAs.
Okay. So basically, I was looking for a way to further my career, and I typed that into YouTube, and I saw your face. And I clicked on the video, and I've seen a couple other videos and looked at a couple of upper schools. And for the price and for the knowledge that you were actually offering, it was really an easy choice.
Easy peasy, killed it. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Do you want to tell us your story? Because sounds like you've got a lot of experience.
Yeah. So I'm now a software QA engineer. I have been for the last 3 years. I've been with the company I'm with now for 9 years total. I started, yep.
How did you from someone to QA?
So I started actually as a warehouse assistant, just helping pack boxes and things. And that led to me being like, well, I want to do more than just pack boxes the rest of my life. And they're like, okay, well, you can build computers. Would you like to do that? I was like, sure, I can build a computer. So I started building computers, and then I became the lead assembler. And then we decided we were going to go with somebody else to build our things. So like, all right, Dylan, what would you like to do now? I said, okay. So I looked around the company, did some YouTube research, and I was like, all right, QA seems pretty good. And this is right around the time COVID was starting to clear up. So I was like, all right, we have QA at the company. That's perfect. I can go talk to somebody. So I went and I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm really interested in what you do. And he's like, awesome. Let's meet once a week and I can give you some tips and tricks and kind of help you get to that spot. So I was with this guy for a while. He was an automation engineer actually, but he was like giving me a hand. And then I took a not to be named boot camp that was not a good idea. So I'd already went down that road. It was bare minimum knowledge, but it helped for what it was, I guess. I waited for a position to open up at my company. I applied for it. They interviewed me. I had to go through the same process everyone else did. I passed that interview, received the job, and the rest is history from there.
That's cool. Whoa. So it took you 6 years to build up your career to switch to QA, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you want to describe your beginning as the QA engineer? Because that's where you've learned a lot of things. That's where I imagine you've asked devs a lot of questions. What is this? How does this work? What do I do with
Yep.
this?
The majority of what I've learned as a manual engineer came actually from discussions with devs that all started with like, how does this work when I'm testing some of their cases? They tend to be pretty passionate people, especially about the code they write. So asking these little questions can lead into much greater conversations, and you end up learning things that you didn't even know.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'll actually add a video that I just posted on Instagram, link to which you can find right
Mhm.
below the video on the YouTube, where I've described the relationship in a funny way between devs and a QA, where devs would like to fight QAs because they found
No,
bugs in code, in their baby.
I
That,
definitely get that.
yeah,
So I'd say the like a key for something like that is it's all in like the delivery, I think. You have to remember that it's one team, like you catching their bug and bringing it back to them in a polite way and them fixing it and making a perfect product makes everybody look as good as possible. So
exactly.
it's important that they understand that you're trying to help them and you're not just out there trying to break things.
Exactly. Even though you are sort of, but you're
Yeah.
trying to break things to help them to fix the code. Good looking puppy right there, by the way.
Thank you.
And by the way, I think you forgot to hit that big fat thumb up button below. Subscribe to our channel because you do not want to miss out on the free tutorials, interview preparation, and successful stories of our students. Now, let's continue. Awesome. Can you describe a couple of cases where devs have helped you to build up skills and a knowledge and improve yourself to become a next level QA engineer?
Absolutely. So when we were working on an integration between a few couple parts of the product, it was confusing for me to kind of understand the relationship between how they work and how I was supposed to use API testing to do all that. So I'd reached out to one of the devs and I was like, "Hey, I have a few questions on this," and it turned into a 3-hour call on exactly how it works. And then the next day, I was teaching other people how to do it. And it can be a little scary sometimes to ask questions because you don't want to feel stupid, I guess, or like maybe
Ye-
you think you should know that.
Yeah,
But the best thing you could possibly do is reach out to that. And I also grew such a relationship with that developer that even after he's left now, I'll still ask him like, "Hey, I'm a little confused about this," and we still have a very positive relationship. So
absolutely. I definitely agree with you. I've done the same thing, whichever company I would go for. And I feel like that's the best way to improve yourself, to become a friend of person who knows the most. And usually I would join a company as the key engineer. There'll be a lot of devs. And just naturally I become a friend of some dev. I don't know, somehow we like each other's vibes. We become friends, we play soccer. And I remember there was my technical lead, aka he was a senior developer architect, and I would be in his team. He would help me to build the test automation framework from scratch for the integration APIs. And that was the first time in my life where I built it with his help. And then I took that knowledge, I took it to the next company, and then I took it to my boot camp. I've opened up my QA boot camp thanks to that guy. If not
yep.
him, by the way, his name Artie. Artie, if you're going to see this video,
Uh,
you're awesome. Yeah, and we became friends, and we still have each other's Instagram. Sometimes we chat, very rarely, but sometimes we can chat and ask each other, "Hey, what's up? I've got a position here. You want to join our company?"
Yeah,
So
it's fantastic. It's something that I'd never even thought of when I first joined. I was like, "All right, this is what I do. I'm going to click these buttons." And I was very nervous. I was scared to speak up in meetings, and things like that because it was all brand new. But that
good.
was some of the biggest things. Like even being able to tell them, like, "Hey, like we have enough cases this sprint. Maybe we should rethink this." Because I've seen that a lot with like a lot of the juniors who will come in. They'll be like, "All right, we're going to add this to the sprint," and they'll just be like, "Okay." They're like, "Oh, we're going to add this to the sprint." Okay, without really thinking, how that exactly is gonna play out. So that was another thing was develop a good relationship to be like, "Hey, I know you really like to do this, but I don't think we have the capacity for that," which helps with those relationships also.
Absolutely. And also, I forgot to tell you that I'm running a QA bootcamp, and if you would like to try yourself as the QA engineer for an entire week in a US-based startup, plus in our bootcamp, you can do that for simply 20 bucks if you would like to. I'm going to leave a link right below this video. Thank you. Here's a question. Why do you think that guy did spend 3 hours with you where you have learned an insane amount of knowledge from him?
In my experience, most devs are incredibly passionate about the code that they're writing, and so he was waiting for someone to ask about it so he could talk about it. And
Exactly.
one of the best things with that particular person's name was Jason. Um, he knew how to explain it in a way that wasn't confusing. So you might be able to talk to somebody, but they use a lot of technical lingo that you just feel like okay. But he broke it down for me and like he was like, "Do you understand this part?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So now this is how this interacts with what we just learned." And he just helping it put it all together in a way that was very relatable for me and very thankful for that.
Exactly. And I think that's the trick that a lot of people don't know about. You have to be eager to learn in order to be likable by devs.
Mhm.
If you show them that, hey, what does this code do? Why do you think we had a bug here and based on this pull request? Can we take a look at it with you? And the guy would be more than glad to because no one understands his code, only him. He's like, yeah, sure, jump into my world. I've built it. I can share it with you.
Yep.
Pretty much 90% of devs would love to do that because no one understands their world and they would love someone to be in their world.
And I think the role of QA is also very important where I think, especially in this world of AI and everything, people want to say like, it's what do we need this for? Well, the human interaction between the two, like just because the code works and it looks good on the screen doesn't mean that it's a friendly user experience. That's something that only a person would know when they're actually going through these things. So he's like, "Yeah, that I think it works great." And I look at it, I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not how we want to do it." You know, like if you're clicking through these, you might find that way more frustrating than if we were to maybe do it this way. And just that simple talk, and he's like, "I see what you're saying." And that could get lost without someone actually being there who would use this product daily.
Exactly. Fully agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why I was growing. My career was kind of switching fast, changing fast from title to title, from position to position. Because so I remember I've joined my first company. There was a senior software architect. He was the main guy in the company. We had 6 people in a room, and he was the only senior person, and the rest were juniors. So he was running the party, and CEO would just tell him what he wants, and the guy would implement it through the hands of others. And as soon as I've joined, I've showed him that, "Hey, I wanna learn." And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do the release." And I ask him, "Hey, can I watch it?" He's like, "Sure, do you wanna do that?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, let me do that." And I did release after release after release. I started looking into his code, understanding why do we need to pass this and not that. I would go through every single line of the code in the release process and check, and it was my first job ever. And after that, I got next job. The company ran out of money, the startup, and I got a next job, and I got a raise of what was it? Something like 20% after 4 months working for the startup. That was insane.
I
Just
think the money is definitely there if you have the drive. One of the first things I was actually told by the person I shadowed, I guess you call it, was that this position can be where someone might find themselves getting comfortable. This is an easy place to be comfortable and just relax. He's like, but you need to have drive and you're not going to get it from external sources like you might if you work in a factory where someone's saying, "Hey, do this." He's like, "No one's going to tell you this." He's like, "You have to go get these things." So similar to you, I was curious on how to write proper test cases because people have a lot of different ways of doing it. So I knew someone who people considered very good. They're like, this is like the person if you have questions. So I went back into his cases and started reading how he was doing his test cases and used that to make my own. And I started learning how to read, not a lot, but read a little code so I could kind of understand. And it's logical. So you don't necessarily have to be intimidated by it. It makes sense the way you think it would. So it's just learning to read it or just trying to understand basics is a huge help when a lot of people aren't trying to do that.
absolutely. Yep, and as you mentioned, finding expert subject, expert matter should be one of your goals. Just if you wanna learn something, find an expert in the subject and become a friend of that guy.
I
And
think
usually
that works at everything in life. Even back in sports, it's like if you want to be better, you find the person who's the best at it.
exactly, exactly. So agree with that. I remember that I've worked for one of the companies and I got a challenge to build a test infrastructure for my team. And that's pretty much DevOps job. I've never done it in my life. And I found one of the guys who was also a very true guy. He's an ex-military, he's a veteran. And he was working as the senior software engineer, and he'd done a lot of DevOps work for fun. He was one of the first engineers in the company. And I started building not a test automation framework, but test infrastructure. And if I would get a question, I would run to him. But I wouldn't waste his time going question by question. I would spend days and nights, sometimes work until 2 a.m. just because I loved it. And just between us, and actually no one knows the company name anyways, I did hire people from Fiverr, from Netherlands, from different countries to help me sometimes when I would get stuck. I wouldn't show them the source code of my company, but I would build something similar on AWS and I would show them and say, hey, what's the problem here? I cannot figure it out on my own, and no one in my company knows at this level, no one understands what's happening here. And we would spend a couple of days and I would figure the things out. And then later I would come back to my guy from that company and I would show it to him. He'd be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I did not know that.
Mm.
And 3 months after, with the help of him and some of the people from Fiverr, I did finish the test infrastructure. And we've cut automation time from 1 hour, from 400 tests running in 1 hour to 1,200 tests by that time that ran within 10 to 20 minutes after we built an infrastructure. And that was quite insane. And thanks to that guy, who was one of the few people who helped me.
I think an overlooked asset in this field is the ability to ask why. I think it's a simple question, but just asking that question can open up a lot of other doors. This is a little off topic, but when I was researching the school and I was looking through the bad reviews, like you'd actually recommended for me to do. One of them was someone saying that they asked him why he thought he ran into this issue, and that upset him. But I
Yeah.
actually think that's a very fair question because I think you need, like you were saying, you need to understand the question you're asking.
Hmm.
And so I was reading that and I was like, I think that's probably the best way to actually ask that. How do you think you got here? And then go back from that to figure out where the issue is. Just like you said, like you don't want to just go to him and get a simple answer that you don't understand. So you need to understand it yourself.
Yep. And this is what I did not tell some students about it in the past, but now as soon as they join, I tell everyone, yo guys, just FYI, here's the best way to learn that I'm going to apply to you and everyone else in this group. Whenever you ask me a question, I will guide you to answer. I will not simply give you an answer. If you feel like you're very upset, you let me know. I'll get your answer directly, but I will do my best to guide you so you would understand it. Because if I give you answer, you copy paste it, game over. You will forget about it tomorrow.
Mhm.
If you get to it within 10 to 20 minutes of me guiding you, you'll remember it forever because you got it on your own. I only guided you. And
Yeah.
people love it. People who go through the course and finish it, they love it. You can see 120 reviews and 3 negative reviews, 1 fake because we had only 1 William in the history of our school, and that was from another William because
Mm,
one of them is on the YouTube. By the way, here's the actual William. I'm going to leave a link
mm,
right here. That's the only 1 William we had. And 2 others, you just read one of them
yeah.
that was not happy with that. So that makes sense that on 2 negative reviews out of 120 make a lot of sense that majority of people do enjoy this method of guiding them, not just giving them answer.
Yeah, it's a tough thing because you're used to like the instant gratification, and no one likes struggling. And learning something new is always going to be a struggle. Coming into something like this and not expecting to work for it, there's the 1% maybe who are that smart, but otherwise you're gonna have to be ready to work. It's not gonna be a simple thing, and I think that gets lost a lot.
Absolutely. And I tell, you know what? I feel like motivation becomes 10 to 20% of the bootcamp now because I motivate people, I give them energy, share the energy all the time so they would be charged up to keep working because you have to learn a lot. In order to become a key automation engineer, it's not an easy thing. And you understand it better than anyone else because you just sign up for the course, which you will experience soon. And
That was my biggest, worry was that could I actually set aside 3 hours of my life to do the work that was needed? And that's a question you have to ask yourself, so
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, that's why we motivate people. And one thing that works real way, by the way, if any other owners of the boot camps are watching it, I hope you will implement it as well. Gather people, not separate them, because I know in a lot of boot camps they don't let students talk to each other because I don't know whatever reason. We combine people, we gather them into groups, and I encourage them to jump on the calls after our webinars to discuss it between them. Because when you go through materials once, when you are on a webinar with me, you got some answers to your questions, we'll discuss something, it's great. But out of 20 people, every single one of them will get a different piece of the puzzle. And if they jump on a call and discuss it all together, they're going to exchange that and share that. So instead of 10% of the knowledge that I've shared with them, they're going to pick 50 to 80 or maybe even 100 depending. Our students have beat the record. They've spent 5 hours on their own working through the code challenges that I gave them. 5 hours on a one call with all of them together. That's without me. I was not even there.
I think that speaks to the quality of people that actually sign up for this class because you wouldn't see that everywhere.
Exactly. Exactly. And so before people sign up for the course, I honestly tell them that, hey, it's not going to be easy. If you're looking for something easy, go to YouTube and watch the video and enjoy it. Or take a Udemy course for $10. This is going to be hard. You pay a lot, you work a lot, you get a lot as a result. It cannot be different.
I'm not sure if you'd want it to be easy. If you're gonna pay the money, would you just want the sheet of answers? I don't know. I feel like you get what you pay for.
Exactly. Exactly. Sheet of answers is awesome, but a lot of interview preparation, you cannot get a job with a lot of interview prep. You cannot get a job with a lot of without a lot of experience, without a lot of practice. You cannot get a job without a lot of knowledge. So we combine all of that into one place where you first get a knowledge, second you apply it. Same day. You as soon as you learn it, you apply it on a startup, US startup, and third, same day you go through the interview preparation and you discuss this knowledge, or maybe tomorrow. That's up to you. You can choose that. But it all happens now. What majority boot camps do wrong, and I clearly can say that, is they let students learn for 5 months to up to 1 year, and then they have exams. And I'm like, what the fuck? People
Mm,
forgot about it. People come back to my boot camp, they tell me, hey, I don't remember what I've learned because I didn't apply it. But if you learn it, you apply it, and you get interview prep through it, you went through it 3 times. It's hard to forget it if you went through it 3 times already.
I
But
completely agree.
it's not easy. I'll be honest, it's not easy.
Yeah, that's you have to expect that though. If you want some type of change, then you have to be willing to put in the work. I can't think of anything I've ever done that was worth doing that was easy.
Nice. By looking at your body, I can definitely say that
Uh,
you're working a lot out, especially.
that's actually something I thought about because I said if I was to tell myself, "Hey, you have to do, let's say, you have to diet or something for 3 months," I'd say, "Okay, it's 3 months." So now just swap in, "Hey, you have to buckle down and go back to school for 3 months." Okay, it's just 3 months. And like you said, like the difference in not only money, but like the where it takes your career, just having that extra skill set is not is absolutely worth it. I know it's scary because I also went through the same thing. Like talking to people is just, I don't know, but you have to invest in yourself. And if you're willing to put in the work, then it's absolutely worth it. Because even as with the company I work at, I know I can speak from experience that those opportunities are there. Having this knowledge just sets you apart.
Exactly. It's about discipline. Look, hey guys, look up at this video right here. I'm going to leave a link in the corner. It's the guy who could barely speak English. During our webinars, he told me he would understand at the beginning, he would understand 10 to 15%. He would rewatch it for 3 hours. 1 hour webinar, he would rewatch it for 3 hours because he wanted to understand it. By the end of the course, he's a military guy. That's why he had discipline. He was like, I don't care. I'm going to get it done. It just takes more, it's going to take me more time than for everyone else because I simply don't speak English very well. And you can hear his broken English on this video right there. But he made it. Now he's an ASDAT. A few years later. And
I think that speaks to soft skills also. When I was a lead, I used to help hire people. And if you, in my opinion, if you made it to the spot where we were interviewing you, then I knew you were qualified. So now I had to find out if you fit our team, which was what mattered almost more than the other things. You could teach most things, but do you want to work? Do you want to get better? Or are you just here for money? And someone like that would be much more valuable to me than someone else because not only is he gonna do the work, but then think of how many juniors he can teach with that knowledge. Like that he's worth 4 employees at that point. So
absolutely. What's the biggest trick you have learned in your career about becoming comfortable?
so as a manual engineer, and I speak for myself, I don't know if everyone's like this. Some days you don't necessarily have 8 hours of work to fill that time. But I think the biggest thing you can do is treat those 8 hours of work as 8 hours of work. Just because you may not be testing cases doesn't mean you can't learn a new thing. So if you have 3 hours left in your day where you might not have a case to test, that doesn't mean you can't spend those 3 hours learning something new. Maybe looking at the cases for the next sprint or anything along those lines. Just keeping those 8 hours of work as 8 hours of work and not allowing yourself to get comfortable and turn on YouTube. And if you're going to, like, watch a video on automation or how to do something that you don't know how to do, just keep those 8 hours of work, uh, positive and moving towards a good direction.
Absolutely. I had that as well. During my when I got my second or third job, it was super chill room, 6 or 5 engineers. Half of every single dev would do the job for 4 hours and then would watch movies for another 4 hours. And at first, I did the same thing, but I was like, "I don't like watching movies. I wanna improve myself. What should I do?" And I went to Code Academy and started learning how to program. JS, HTML, CSS. Then I've switched to Free Code Camp. I started learning algorithm challenges in JS, improving my JS skills. And then 11 months after, one of the largest corporations in terms of cellular services reached out to me like, "Hey, you want to go for an interview with us?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do that." And those algorithms that I've been solving for the last 11 months while people were watching movies have helped me to get a job where I've crossed $100,000 for the first time in my life. And that was like 2 years after I started as the QA back in 2013 or 2014.
Yeah, a simple 2 hours a day of something small like that turns into a huge amount of time across even a month. I myself have been doing boot.dev, I think it's called. It's like a way to learn coding through a more video game style, like an RPG style, where you're deciding health and shields and things, which is kind of keeps it more interesting for me.
Yeah,
So I've been doing that myself.
that's cool. Can you share maybe some of your negative experience working with devs? Maybe.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I've really only had one dev that was kind of a pain in the butt. So I reached out to him once and I never got a response. So I ended up going to the project manager and I was like, "Hey, is this guy still here?" He's like, "Oh, no." He's like, "He doesn't answer emails. He checks his Teams only twice a day. He prefers to be brought in if you only message him through the comments on the case." So, any communication had to be done that way, but, with cases, there's a lot of people who get automatically emailed if anything is changed on them.
Yeah,
So then these simple conversations are creating chains of, like, 30 to 40 emails, which made people not happy, but he simply didn't care.
yeah,
So and did you just have to work around that? And I'd say it is a pain in the butt, and you might wanna be like, say, some few things that you might be feeling, but it's just, don't. Just be nice. He'll work it'll work itself out. So you kinda have to be flexible in that way and understand the situation. You can't just be angry or be like, "This is a pain for me. I don't wanna deal with it." It's a difficult thing to learn, and you eventually learn to navigate them and or take advantage of time. Like, maybe for him, it would have been better to have a meeting. So maybe instead of just reaching out, I can grab him for 30 minutes and have that whole conversation. Yeah, I just might
yeah.
have to wake up early or late depending on the time zone difference, but that's part of doing what you need to do.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and I'll tell you, he remembered that I did the things he liked because then he would come to me and be like, he's like, "Thank you. I know I can be a pain, but thank you." So it ended up being worth it in the end.
Nice. So he understood it. He was a pain in the butt, huh?
Yep.
That's awesome. I want to ask you guys on the YouTube who's watching us, leave a comment below and share your most negative story about the devs because I love hearing those. And maybe we can grab one of you guys, just like Dylan, from the YouTube guy from the YouTube who signed up for the course recently and interview you. And so you could share your story because that sounds really cool. And on my side, I can share one negative experience of being micromanaged. That was the most interesting experience that I ever had in my life because I never thought that can be done. But somehow it did happen. And as you said, you just have to be nice and answer in the most diplomatic way possible. You have to try to avoid the conflict. But that was my manager. I've tried to avoid it for multiple times. I was helping everyone in the team, and he wanted to belittle me for some reason. There was some, I don't know, personal issue. But anyways, I helped everyone in the team. When he was not available, he would just disappear for days sometimes, and I would take the ownership of the team. And then his manager, the VP, he would message me like, "Hey, where's this guy?" I would be like, "I have no idea. I haven't seen him for a couple of days. He doesn't answer me." And half a year later, what happened that he was laid off, and they set me as the manager because I was already taking care of the team while he was gone, anyways. So as you mentioned, I fully agree with you that you just have to be nice. That's pretty much it.
I think sometimes managers get a little intimidated, I think, when you have a exceptionally intelligent person working under you. But I think that's more speaks to your skills, because if you were able to nurture that person so they become that much more intelligent and where they can lead on their own, that's more of a feather in your cap than it is a mark against you.
Exactly. Fully agree with you. Awesome. Any tips you want to, based on your experience, you want to share with the people who are just becoming QA engineers now, or maybe got their first jobs, but they want to build good relationships with devs, with the team?
As a manual engineer, I'd say it is very important to establish these relationships, because a lot of what you do is user experience related. Like, you're the one going through, clicking the button, seeing what leads to what. Are these wait times long? Automation doesn't always see those things. So it's your job as a manual person to comment on those. You might not think 5 seconds is a long time, but it could be for someone who's trying to check out. If you're on that checkout screen for 5 seconds, you're like, wait a minute, why is this taking so long? So it's very important that you ask those questions and establish those relationships, and also be curious. If you have a question, ask it. If you're not sure, ask, because that's your biggest way to gain more knowledge, is to just simply ask questions, be curious, which will lead you to a lot more opportunities than you think. Because just being known as the person who asks the questions gets people to come to you for things.
Hmm.
And then you take that step up, and also try to learn as much as you can, because now the manual field is pretty saturated. So anything you can do to take a step above automation, or if you want to manage or any of those things, like, just continue your education. Don't get comfortable doing what you're doing, especially when you have the work life balance is something you have to learn to navigate. It sounds really great, but it can also be a downfall when you get too comfortable. Just stay motivated, stay curious, and just continue to grow. And in a field like this, the opportunities really are endless. You determine how far you want to go.
Absolutely. That's a great motivational speech. 100% agree with you. Awesome. Anything else? Anything that you had on your mind you would love to share with people?
No, I actually was wondering. I think it's going to be great to have this interview now, and then maybe share my experience on after, and actually explain, as someone who's in the field currently, how it is to actually go through this while having a job, while having other responsibilities. Because obviously the other people have to do that, but it's interesting to kind of balance those dynamics.
Exactly. So that's why you guys gotta subscribe to this channel so you would not miss out in the next 3 months and a half, next video with Dylan after he goes through test automation course. By the way, Dylan, did you want to go for this one that started 2 weeks ago and catch up, or do you want to go for the next one that starts in a month and a half?
Month and a half, I'm gonna start fresh and study.
Yeah, and you guys gotta also leave a comment below and hit the like button as well. Tell Dylan how thankful you are to him and what exactly you're thankful to him for, because he shared a lot of tips and tricks that you can use to build up your career and take it to the next level.